Your vision is your destiny. They never warned you that the most dangerous moment of your life would arrive long before your first heartbreak, your first defeat, your first funeral. It came quietly, the day someone asked, "What do you see?" For yourself. And you shrugged, because no one had ever taught you how to see beyond the edges of the ordinary. Most people spend their years with their eyes wide open, yet spiritually blind, drifting through routines designed by other people's imaginations. They inherit a calendar, a paycheck, a set of polite ambitions. They rehearse smiles in the mirror and call it confidence. They scroll stages they'll never stand on and call it inspiration, never realizing that every minute they postpone a personal vision. They donate another brick to the prison of mediocrity. But you, listener, are not most people. You feel it in your chest, a quiet riot, a hot blue spark that refuses to cool. That spark is a prophecy. That spark is the truth that your future is not a place you arrive at, is a cathedral you build, one invisible brick of vision at a time. And when you finally decide to guard that spark, fuel it, fan it, let it roar, the world will discover what it never asked for but desperately needs: the fullest, fiercest version of you. So remember this, not as motivation, but as law. Your vision is your destiny. Look backward for a moment, into the dark workshops of history where greatness was forged. Edison pacing at midnight, oil lamp trembling in calloused fingers, his neighbors snoring through the century he was illuminating. Carnegie, an immigrant's son, copying telegraph code in a furnace-hot rail depot, already hearing the clatter of a nation strung together by steel. Disney, bankrupt in Kansas City, doodling a mouse no banker would finance, but every child would one day adore. Lincoln, self-taught by firelight, reading Blackstone's commentaries, while neighbors mocked the lanky dreamer whose words would later refit a fractured union. None of them possessed a treasury, a lineage, or a guarantee. All they carried was a private hallucination, so vivid it began bending reality around them. They did not discover destiny. They declared it, again and again, until existence surrendered. That is the mathematics of vision. One thought times one obsession times one lifetime of relentless action equals a legacy that outlives the bones that bore it. And you, a citizen of the most connected, accelerated era humankind has ever known, dare not plead poverty of opportunity. The same satellites that map our galaxies will illuminate the terrain of your potential if you just raise your eyes. But vision is not a poster you tape to the wall. It is a mirror you reshape every dawn, which means our first frontier is mindset. You must choose, minute by minute, whether your inner dialogue becomes a megaphone of doubt or a clarion of daring. When the voice inside whispers, "Who are you to dream so grandly?" answer with the thunder of Michelangelo, who stared at raw marble and heard angels scratching for release. When fatigue disguises itself as logic and says, "Rest, you have done enough," answer with the echo of Sir Edmund Hillary, who set foot on Everest's summit and simply observed, "It is not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." Do not negotiate with that negative committee that meets inside your skull. Evict them, replace the board of directors in your brain with counselors named discipline, hunger, faith, focus, and audacity. Let them vote daily on every action that matters. Mindset is architecture. Pour the concrete early, because storms are scheduled. Once the mind is claimed, we enter belief, a fuel cell of destiny. Belief is not a mood. It is a muscle. You strengthen it with repetition. Every promise kept to yourself is a rep. Every fear faced is another plate added to the bar. Soon doubt cannot lift the weight you casually curl. When the Wright brothers watched birds ride invisible currents and believed they could build heavier than aircraft, engineers laughed. When Oprah, abused and penniless, believed a black woman's voice could reshape global conversation, television executives balked, yet belief stacked, stubborn. and sleepless overruled credentials every time. So guard your faith like priceless code. Install it, debug it, update it, encrypt it against cynics. Because once belief is compromised, even brilliant plans become brittle glass. But when belief is bulletproof, even clumsy efforts gather momentum. Now we sculpt. Clarity. Clarity is not merely seeing the mountain. It is studying every ridge, every ledge, every ice-veined obstacle until ascent becomes inevitable geometry. Grab paper, bleed ink, draft the blueprint of the life you cannot leave this planet without building. Write until your handwriting looks like urgency. Detail the smells, the sounds, the weight of the keys to that office, that clinic, that studio, that orphanage, that rocket hangar, whatever palace your purpose demands. Clarity accelerates commitment. A vague dream fuels occasional enthusiasm. A vivid blueprint recruits your nervous system into 24/7's construction. Earl Nightingale stated, "People with goals succeed because they know where they're going." Clarity is GPS for the soul. Without it, you circle safe neighborhoods of habit. With it, you chart the savage territory where miracles are mined. Next, we ignite vision itself, the central furnace. Vision is the portal between imagination and incarnation. It is where you translate light into architecture, thunder into vocabulary, impossibility into prototype. Close your eyes. Summon the scene 5 years forward. See the building with your name engraved, the patents filed, the stadium chanting, the children you rescued, the symphonies your code conducts, the deserts you greened, the injustices you dismantled. Now open your eyes and behave as if that future hires today's hours. Every email you send, every kilometer you run, every calorie you consume must audition for that future. If an activity cannot pass the interview, fire it. Vision is a jealous monarch. It banishes distractions with ruthless decree. Give it nothing less than devotion, because whatever you half-love will never bloom. A vision without purpose is fireworks without heat, spectacular but non-transformative. Purpose answers the primal question, for whom, for what, am I willing to bleed? Alexander Graham Bell's purpose was to collapse distance. Mother Teresa's purpose was to wrap dignity around the destitute. Martin Luther King Jr.'s purpose was to cash the promissory note of equality. Purpose is the anchor that holds you when headlines mock you, when revenue dips, when friends evaporate. Return to it daily, like a monk touching sacred stone. State it aloud until your pulse harmonizes with the sentence. Purpose turns weekdays into crusades, but crusades falter without discipline, the scaffold of execution. While amateurs argue morning routines, professionals simply begin before the alarm. Be the person who trains while others debate protein powders, who writes while others curate playlists, who rehearses while others refresh feeds. Discipline is a lighthouse, unwavering, unseduced by moods, guiding you through fogs of distraction. Recall Kobe Bryant's 4 a.m. workouts, Beethoven's pre-dawn composing, Angela Merkel's nightlit office. They did not worship hustle culture, they worshipped outcome, and discipline was the path. Lay out tomorrow's battle plan tonight. Guard your calendar like a dragon, coiled atop treasure. Ritualize your excellence until it no longer requires courage, only character. From discipline, we surge into action, the collider, where theory breaks apart into tangible results. Action is the great translator. It converts hope into evidence, energy into equity. Thomas Edison burned through filament after filament, not chasing failure, but courting data. Sarah Blakely slammed her car door on a million no's, selling fax machines by day so she could prototype Spanx by night. They understood the algebra. One imperfect action greater than zero. Perfect ideas. Leap before you're ready. Launch before the paint dries. The universe has a peculiar habit of opening doors for those sprinting toward them. Measure, learn, iterate, repeat, until your footsteps print their own acronym, ACT. Course correct triumph. Yet every sustained climb meets resistance, market crashes, illnesses, betrayals, algorithms, recessions, pandemics. This is where we cultivate resilience, the alloy of grit and grace. Remember Abraham Lincoln's ledger of defeats: business bankruptcy, electoral losses, nervous breakdown, yet he refused surrender. And history crowned him Emancipator. Remember Nelson Mandela pacing a Robben Island cell for 27 winters, memorizing Invictus until the cell could no longer contain his country. Resilience is not bouncing back, it is bouncing forward, spring-loading setbacks into propulsion. When life hurls bricks, arrange them into a higher staircase. When fog surrounds you, navigate by values, not visibility. Tell adversity, pressure is welcome. Diamonds are due. Adaptability sharpens resilience into strategy. Blockbuster clung to VHS loyalty. Netflix bent with broadband wins and scripted a future. Kodak clutched film nostalgia. Fujifilm pivoted into medical imaging and fluoropolymer chemistry. Flexibility is not betrayal of vision. It is the adjustment of sails to reach the same horizon. Diagnose realities weekly. Ask, is my method serving the mission or stroking my ego? If data disagrees with tradition, marry data. Pride is an expensive landlord. Evict it. No ascent is solitary. Therefore we embrace gratitude, not as etiquette, but as psychological compound interest. Gratitude widens perception, lubricates collaboration, disarms envy. It whispers, remember, you once prayed for the battles you now fight. And suddenly, annoyance converts to appreciation. Write daily thank you notes that weigh as much as gold bars. Celebrate microscopic wins. The typo caught the 10th push-up, the single customer who believed. Joy multiplies stamina. Bitterness drains voltage. Simultaneously, become a lifelong apprentice of learning. Leonardo da Vinci dissected cadavers to comprehend muscle curvature, then painted Mona Lisa's smile. Benjamin Franklin rented silence from dawn to copy essays, revise them, blind, benchmark, improvement. Modern Titans gorge on podcasts at double speed. Audible biographies at commute length. Masterclasses at lunch. Curiosity is the operating system of relevance. Set aside an hour each day, where your mind feasts on unfamiliar disciplines. Neuroscience, if you're a poet. Dramaturgy, if you're an engineer. Cross-pollination breeds revolutions. Threading through all of this is the invisible golden cord of faith, not necessarily in doctrine, but in direction. Faith is the oxygen mask in turbulence, the ancient hum that says, keep climbing. The view justifies the strain. Cultivate it through meditation, prayer, journaling, nature walks, whatever practice tunes you to frequencies beyond fear. Because on nights when spreadsheets bleed red, when critics misquote you, when the person in the mirror looks unconvinced, faith is the final candle you guard from wind. Now, weave these elements: mindset, belief, clarity, vision, purpose, discipline, action, resilience, adaptability, gratitude, learning, faith into a single unstoppable current. Feel how each feeds the next, like 12 pistons throttling the same engine, and realize everything except awards, valuations, headlines is residue. The real fortune is internal metamorphosis, the sculpting of a spirit that cannot return to smaller dimensions. Picture the closing scene of your life. You are 80, 95, 103, sitting beneath a sky orange with sunset, grandchildren orbiting, strangers quoting lines you once scribbled on napkins. They will ask, what mattered? You will answer, not with trophies, but with stories. Of mornings you rose, while doubt slept. Of risks that bankrupted comfort, but yielded meaning. Of tears you turned into irrigation for someone else's field. Of a vision so relentless, it kept incubating miracles. Long after your fingerprints vanished, That is destiny, and it was never mystical. It was architected, brick by invisible brick, the moment you swore allegiance to the picture in your mind and refused to submit to smaller stories. So inhale. Let commitment flood your lungs. Exhale every timid syllable you ever spoke against yourself. Stand. Step forward. Stake everything on the masterpiece only you can manifest. Because when the dust of centuries settles, monuments crumble, currencies expire, and languages evolve, one truth will remain etched in the ledger of eternity. Your vision was your destiny, and you had the audacity to live it.